Hey, today we're going to take a look at the H.P. Lovecraft Iceberg. It's pretty short, having only 60 entries, but it should be interesting nonetheless. The iceberg was made by Ralph Wolf 613, and the explanations for each entry are from the author itself. This was supposed to be a fun and quick video, but the time it took me to get it out was greater than expected. Still, I hope you enjoyed this iceberg. Certainly Lovecraft's most famous creation, it is an alien entity that resides in a lost city at the bottom of the sea, is described with a humanoid appearance, but with an octopus-like head, dragon wings, and a rubbery body. It first appeared in the book The Call of Cthulhu in 1928, leaving a legacy in pop culture and being referenced in several current media, such as South Park, The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, Supernatural, The Simpsons, etc. One of Lovecraft's most controversial characteristics was his racist views, considering as inferior any race or culture that was non-Anglo-Saxons. His racism was so extreme that not even white people escaped, since he considered as a superior race only the English or descendants of English. Many scholars argued that this was a common line of argument in American society at the time, particularly in New England. Robert E. Howard was an American science fiction and fantasy writer, considered the father of the sword and sorcery genre with the Hyborian universe of Conan the Barbarian. Howard and Lovecraft were great friends and corresponded by mail. Howard brought many elements of Lovecraft's writing into the Conan universe. Lovecraft was also very shaken after Howard's One of Lovecraft's most widespread creation in pop culture, the Necronomicon, whose original name is All As If, is a fictional book that would have been written in Damascus around 730 AD by Abdul al-Hazred, a mad Arab poet from Sana'a, Yemen. The book would contain dark secrets that would drive humanity insane. Its secrets could raise the dead, contact supernatural entities, travel through space and time to other dimensions, and summon ancestral entities older than time. One of the copies would be kept in the library of Miskatonic University, based in Arkham. The book is best known for appearing in director Sam Raimi's Evil Dead franchise. Lovecraft died at the age of 46 on March 15, 1937, from colon cancer. Edgar Allan Poe was an American writer who was part of the Romantic movement in his country. He was known for his stories that involve mystery and the macabre. Lovecraft was a huge fan of his work, and his works served as inspiration for the cosmic horror universe. The name he signs in his books is an abbreviation for Howard Phillips Lovecraft. When he was 3-year-old, Lovecraft's father suffered a nervous breakdown and was admitted to a hospital, where he remained until his death in 1898. Little Love was raised and educated by his mother, aunts, and grandfather. The concept of Lovecraft's work was inspired by nightmares he had as a child. Can you imagine the trauma of this boy? It is a lost city first described in the tale The Call of Cthulhu, being a sunken city located in the South Pacific and the prison of the entity Cthulhu. It is a kind of chant recited by the worshippers of Cthulhu, who repeat the phrase Be Englui Emglu Nafs Cthulhu Relay Ugah Nagl Thang, which means in his house in Relay, Death Cthulhu waits dreaming. Guillermo del Toro is a Mexican film director known for his unique style, having directed films such as Pan's Labyrinth, The Shape of Water, and Pacific Rim. He is also an avowed fan of Lovecraft and has long been trying to adapt the book At the Mountains of Madness for the movies. Del Toro submitted the film project but was ultimately turned down due to his demands that the film should be rated R and have a budget of $150 million, and also because of its similarity to the film Prometheus. He is an American actor and voice actor known mainly by horror and science fiction fans. He became famous for acting in several adaptations of Lovecraft's short stories, being best known for having played Herbert West in Reanimator. He also acted in the films From Beyond, Castle Freak, and Necronomicon, where he plays Lovecraft himself. It is an American pulp fiction magazine where Lovecraft first published most of his short stories, starting in 1923. being edited initially by Edwin Baird, who was later replaced by Farnsworth Wright after 14 issues. Wright gave the magazine a unique identity. In addition to Lovecraft, other contributors to the magazine were Robert E. Howard, Robert Bloch, and Clark Ashton Smith. It is the term defined by Auguste Delbert to refer to the mythology of Lovecraft's fictional universe, such as the setting, locations, traditions, and also the pantheon of gods and creatures present in his works. Lovecraft was a lover of poetry, having started reciting at the age of 2 and was already venturing into writing by the age of 6. Until he was 27 years old, he had only written poetry. After his father's death, Lovecraft was raised by other members of his family, including his grandfather, an industrialist named Whipple Van Buren Phillips. It was this one who introduced him to reading and introduced him to horror stories that would accompany him throughout his life. It is not news to any horror fans that Lovecraft has inspired many modern horror writers, and one of them is Stephen King, the famous writer of Carrie, The Shining, The Green Mile, The Firestarter, and many others. We can see many influences from Lovecraft in It, which talks about a cosmic entity from chaos that comes to our world to spread fear and madness among people. Metallica released 3 songs based on Lovecraft's short stories: All Nightmare Long, Thing That Should Not Be, and The Call of Cthulhu. An interesting detail is that the band changed the spelling of the name Cthulhu, since in the book it is said that pronouncing his name can bring you closer. Shuma-Gorath is a creature that first appeared in the short stories The Curse of the Golden Skull by Robert E. Howard. Being a deity in the Turian era, was invoked by the wizard Rothath in a magical curse on his dying remains from a wound inflicted by cold. He is best known for being included in Marvel Comics, becoming a recurring villain of Doctor Strange. A similar creature called the Gargantus appears in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness because the studio doesn't have the copyright to use the character in theaters. It was a pseudonym created by Lovecraft after reading 1001 Nights. Later the name was used in his works, being attributed to a mad Arab who wrote the Necronomicon. Stuart Gordon was a film director born in Chicago, Illinois, and died on March 24, 2020, at the age of 72. He was a cult director in the 80s for his trash horror films and directed several adaptations of Lovecraft's short stories, including most famous Reanimator, From Beyond Pendragon. The Apocalypse trilogy are 3 films directed by John Carpenter that address elements of Lovecraft's comic horror. The films that make up the trilogy are The Thing, Prince of Darkness, and In the Mouth of Madness. Rick and Morty is an adult animated series created by Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon. The series follows the adventures of alcoholic scientist Rick Sanchez and his grandson Morty Smith throughout space and alternate universes. At the end of the cartoon's opening, it is possible to see a creature similar to Cthulhu chasing the protagonists, who seem to have stolen one of their offspring. Despite being a very diligent student, he suffered a nervous breakdown and was unable to complete high school or enter college. For that reason, he never received his high school diploma. Lovecraft was a precocious child. At the age of 2, he recited poetry. At 3, he could read, and at 6, he began to write his first poetry. Arkham is the name of a fictional city created by Lovecraft. The city is located in Massachusetts, but its exact location was never specified. However, it is assumed to be north of Boston, probably in the Essex country. The city served as the inspiration for Arkham Asylum, a fictional asylum from the Batman stories where most of its villains are interned after being defeated by the hero. Lovecraft is one of the few writers to stick to just one genre, in this case horror. The author managed to create an ambience and attract the reader, presenting an apparently banal situation and then immediately revealing the horror behind something that you can't even imagine. He was one of the members of the Circle of Lovecraft and one of the author's main proteges. He is mainly remembered for having been the first to publish Lovecraft's work and for having founded Arkham House. In addition to horror, he has also spawned great works of historical fiction, poetry, detective novels, science fiction, and biographies. It is an essay written in 1933 where Lovecraft described his ideal political system. The essay was used to echo policy proposals that have been made over the past few decades. In this essay, he advocates government control of the distribution of resources, shorter working hours, and a higher salary and unemployment insurance, and old age pensions. He also highlights the need for an oligarchy of intellectuals. According to him, power must be restricted to those who are sufficiently intelligent and educated. It is an international award dedicated to honoring outstanding artists of the fantasy genre. The award was founded in 1975 in honor of Lovecraft, so much so that the theme of the first event was the Circle of Lovecraft. Until 2015, winners received the Bust of Lovecraft nickname Howard. Lovecraft signed some of his works using pseudonyms. They are Lewis Theobald in The Crawling Chaos, Humphrey Littlewood in A Reminiscence of Dr. Samuel Johnson, Ward Phillips in Ex Oblivion, and Edward Softly. A poem written by Lovecraft in honor of Edgar Allan Poe.
Eternal brood the shadows on this ground, dreaming of centuries that have gone before. Great elms rise solemnly by slab and mound, arched high above a hidden world of yore. Round all the scene a light of memory plays, and dead leaves whisper of departed days, longing for sights and sounds that are no more. Lonely and sad a spectre glides along aisles where of old his living footsteps fell. No common glance discerns him, though his song peals down through time with a mysterious spell. Only the few who sorcery's secret know espy amidst these tombs the shade of Poe.
An illithid, popularly known as Mind Flayer, is a creature present in the Dungeons & Dragons RPG with an appearance very similar to Lovecraft's creatures. Being a humanoid and monstrous aberration with psionic powers, inhabits damp caves and underground cities and usually makes intelligent creatures out of slaves. His name served as the inspiration for the villain of the second season of the series Stranger Things. As a child, Lovecraft was a huge fan of detective novels, which led him to create a detective agency called the Providence Detective Agency at age 13. However, he quickly tired of it and returned to literature. Lovecraft's stories didn't sell much and he couldn't make a living out of it, especially as his stories became more and more complex, and that made sales a little difficult. His situation was so bad that he earned more by proofreading and ghostwriting texts signed by other people. Created by Mike Mignola, Hellboy is a comic book character published by Dark Horse Comics, as in classic European monster movies and legends. The character was adapted for a film in 2004, in a film directed by Guillermo del Toro. The film's story is very much based on cosmic horror, with Hellboy facing off against a sect that intends to summon cosmic gods with the appearance of octopus. Arkham House is an American publishing house created by August Derleth and Donald Wandry to publish hardcore collections of the best work of H.P. Lovecraft, which were previously only published in pulp magazines. It was founded in 1939 in Sauk City, Wisconsin. The Conservative was a journal edited and self-published sporadically by H.P. Lovecraft between 1915 and 1923. Some of its pieces were written by Lovecraft himself, but many of them were written by others and included not just political and social commentary on the issues of the day, but also poetry, short stories, and literary criticism. In spite of its name, Lovecraft's style of conservatism bore little resemblance to what goes by that name in America today, and instead was first and foremost a call for a cultural revival, an appeal to a return to the deepest wellsprings that had inspired Western culture from its origins. On the album art of the Iron Maiden's Life After Death, you can see a tombstone with a quote from Lovecraft saying, "That is not death which can eternal lie, and with strange aeons even death may die." It is an essay written in 1922 where Lovecraft describes his view on religion. He describes his shift from the Protestantism of his parents to the atheism of his adult life. It is a character from the RPG Call of Cthulhu based on Lovecraft himself, so much so that his name is a pseudonym that the author used to use. Ward is a pulp horror writer, about 17-year-old with a typical Boston accent. Nigel John Dermot Nail, better known as Sam Neill, is a New Zealand actor best known for his role as Alan Grant in the Jurassic Park franchise. He became popular among Lovecraft fandom for having participated in 3 cosmic horror-themed films, namely In the Mouth of Madness, Event Horizon, and Possession. It is a parody of the author who appears in the cartoon Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, in the episode The Shrieking Madness and Pounds of Shadows. He is a horror author who serves as a professor at Darrow University. He says his books are inspired by extra-dimensional beings who send him messages, but this is a hoax to sell his stories. The character is voiced by Jeffrey Combs, an actor known for acting in several adaptations of Lovecraft's works. It is an animated film released in 2016, which follows a children's version of the author venturing into a frozen realm filled with the creatures of his works. The film won 2 sequels, released in 2017 and 2018, and its cast includes famous names such as Ron Perlman and Christopher Plummer. Many netizens scoffed at the film upon learning of its existence, considering it an odd idea to make a children's film about a person like Lovecraft. The Valdemar Legacy is a 2010 Spanish horror film directed by José Luis Alman, based on the Cthulhu mythos, but it is not an adaptation of any Lovecraft's book. The film is divided into 2 parts, the second being the Valdemar Legacy, the Forbidden Shadow, which features Cthulhu. The films received extremely negative reviews. The Night Count are creatures that appear in Lovecraft's tales, having their first appearance in The Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath. They are described as black and slender humanoids, faceless and with armored skin. The inspiration for this creature came from a recurring nightmare the author had as a child, where he was kidnapped by a dark creature that took him flying over the city. After marrying Sonia Green, Lovecraft moved to his wife's apartment in Brooklyn, New York, but his relationship with the city was not the best. The hat shop he ran on 5th Avenue went bankrupt. He didn't take over as editor at Weird Tales, and his wife's health got so bad that she had to be committed to a sanatorium. In 1929, he returned to his hometown of Providence. One of the questions that most plague the author fans is how to pronounce the word Cthulhu. Although each one uses the pronunciation they consider most correct, the closest would be Klul-Hulu, no matter how you pronounce it. It is the phobia of the sea, more precisely of bodies of water that seem vast, dark, deep and dangerous. Lovecraft had this phobia, which explains why many of his horror stories are related to the sea. Despite being a pacifist, Lovecraft believed that war was something that would accompany humanity to its end, due to his disbelief in humanity. The author's traces of depression grew stronger at age 37, as he embraced a solitary nature, seeking refuge in ghostly and frightening environments. One of his most frequent habits was to walk alone through the cemetery at night. As a child, Lovecraft was diagnosed with poikilothermia, a very rare disease that caused a reaction in the body, preventing him from having his temperature regulated, which is why he always had cold skin to the touch. Lovecraft was an Anglophile and supported the British monarchy, opposing democracy and thinking that America should be ruled by an aristocrat. Lovecraft was a teetotaler and supported the implementation of prohibition, which was one of the few reforms he supported during the first part of his life. He later changed his mind and considered prohibition ineffective in the 1930s, but remained a teetotaler. Lovecraft never wrote the contents of the Necronomicon. The book and its powers are only mentioned in his works. When the author died, many hack writers wrote their own versions of the Necronomicon and published them as if they were real supernatural books. The worst thing is that many people bought the idea. Lovecraft hated the light and did most of his activities at night, such as reading, writing and going for walks. Lovecraft named his pet cat a racist term for African American citizens, the fearsome N-word, some will understand. A after the rich did not assume the characteristics of his idealized aristocracy as he had hoped they would, Lovecraft started to support socialism due to the increasing political capital of socialist countries at the time of the Great Depression. However, he was against the ideas of Karl Marx, believing that a Marxist revolution would destroy American civilization. The coordinates of Rilliech's location are 47.9 south, 126.43 west. The town is just short of Point Nemo, 48.52.6 south, 123.23.6 west. Point Nemo deals with the farthest point from any continent or island, being a point in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Point Nemo was also known for, in 1997, the United States Navy picked a mysterious sound in this region that became known as the bloop. Was this a call of Cthulhu?